roads from the tour to Valley of Flowers were barely dry, but we were on the road again, and this time to the western states of Gujarat and Rajasthan on the second thematic tour to study dry and desert zones, coastal and marine ecosystems, and protected areas in western India. The journey began with a road trip to Delhi, ending with a flight through the clouds to Ahmedabad. The clouds would be the defining feature of the tour as the monsoon kept up its performance throughout the trip. The first leg of a journey involved a trip to the Saurashtra region via the Little Run, the smaller cousin of the Great Run to the north. Here, we began a tour with a visit to the Bajana Interpretation Center in the Indian Wildlife Sanctuary. After a briefing on the specialities of the sanctuary and the Indian wildlife, we were off to the field. The sanctuary is a dry marsh during the winter and summer months, but now it was covered in water all around and we had to dig in our boots to be able to progress within. After a slow trudge of nearly 1 hour, we were able to sight a herd of Indian wild ass in the distance. The field trip ended with our very own Shreyas pulling a Gujarat Forest Department vehicle out of the slush in a tractor. With a hearty breakfast behind us, we began the next day with a visit to the ultra-high-density mango plantation at the Jamnagar Refinery of Reliance, seeing a unique method of land reclamation and revenue generation within the vast expanse of the refinery. From here, it was a small drive along the Charkala saltworks to the edge of the Marine National Park on the coast of the Gulf, where we were briefed on the uniqueness of the Marine National Park and the threats to its conservation from human activities. We visited the Okamadi turtle hatchery right before entering Dwarka. Here, the principles of turtle breeding and integration of ex situ and in situ measures were discussed. The hatchlings of the green sea turtle were anxious to get away as they flitted across the pond in the hatchery next to the shore. A darshan at Dwarka, our second Char Dham in as many weeks, was fulfilling, and it was followed by a presentation on the various CSR activities of Tata Chemicals in the field of biodiversity conservation. Here, the invocation of emotional and cultural values was laid emphasis on in conservation activities. The day ended with a visit to the beach in Mithapur, where we witnessed the grandeur of the Arabian Sea during the monsoons. A A visit of the Indian Forest Service probationers to Gujarat cannot be complete without a visit to Gir, the home of the Asiatic lion. The journey began with a stop at Madhipur beach, where we set our worries aside to enjoy the amazing waters of the sea, indulging in games and fun. After a welcome at Sasan with piping hot lunch, it was time for a presentation on the management of the Gir National Park. The park management is an excellent integration of technology, society, and expertise to cater to the only home of the Asiatic lion in the world. The day ended with a wonderful performance of Dhamal by the Siddhi tribesmen. Some of the more enthusiastic probationers ended the day later in the night after a jeep patrol through the park. The forest guard is not a privileged soul, and we experienced this firsthand during a foot patrol the next morning. Traversing check dams, slush, mud, and rivers, we saw how difficult foot patrolling can get, with the added danger of poachers and wild animals always present. After this experience, all of us were in awe of the dedication of the foot soldiers of the forests. A brief rest after the patrol was followed by a visit to the Lion Hospital, the veterinary center of the Gir National Park. It housed the best facilities for diagnosis and treatment. Here, we were exposed to the basics of animal rescue and tranquilization. Though we were unable to venture into the national park, we explored the alternative at Devalia in the Gir interpretation zone, with a safari that housed the important animals of the region, including the Asiatic lion. The next day was a long journey to Ahmedabad, crossing Saurashtra. We were excited for the journey as we would get to unite with Group A for a couple of days during our stay in Ahmedabad. As we drove along the Sabarmati riverfront, we were greeted with some of the best urban landscapes in the country. Today, we reached Aranya Bhavan to interact with PCCF and HOF, Gujarat Forest Department, who impressed upon us the various initiatives and works of the department, including the developments at Ekta Nagar that we were to visit later. The challenge of tourism management in protected areas was discussed at length during the meeting. After this, we visited the Indra Nature Park within Gandhinagar, maintained by the Gir Foundation, a unique public-private partnership That is an example of the Forest Department carrying out in-house research on wildlife and biodiversity. After visiting the fossil park, we were asked to dwell on the issue of avifauna and their utility in crop fields, with strong arguments presented from both sides. The day ended with a visit to Paneet One, a Sanskriti One, a concept created to make the public aware of the need for conservation and to bring nature closer to the common people. It housed various components including a Rashi One, Nakshatra One, Panchvati, Arogya One and Navgraha One. The next 2 days were spent at the National Forensic Sciences University at Gandhinagar, studying the basics of forensics and their application to wildlife crimes. We saw the integration of wildlife crimes with the digital world and the complexities involved therein. The training ended on a positive note with a promise to host practical sessions for future IFS officers. The visit to Ekta Nagar began with the stop at Arogya One, a beautiful garden with various components including an indoor plant section, Lucia garden, yoga garden and the highlight, the Aushadh Manav, a model of the man with walkways through his various limbs and body parts detailing the important medicinal plants for particular parts. Next was a visit to the Statue of Unity, where the batch renewed its pledge to serve the nation and its people. The Sardar dwarfed us with not only the size of the statue, but his stature and commitment to the country. We took inspiration from the Iron Man of India as we resolved to continue his work to achieve the India of our dreams. This was followed by a briefing on the various projects of the Forest Department in Ekta Nagar, with a special emphasis on interdepartmental coordination for the success of such projects. Our visit culminated with a visit to the Jungle Safari, which hosts, among others, a white tiger, and the Ekta Nursery that has been created to prolong the bond between man and nature, allowing tourists to carry plants from the nursery to their homes. With the Gujarat leg of the tour behind us, we undertook the longest road journey of the tour, covering 560 odd kilometers from Ahmedabad to Jaisalmer in a day, and witnessed the change in vegetation as we went further northwest. Our first stop here was a visit to the Desert National Park Wildlife Sanctuary, the home of the critically endangered Great Indian Bustard. A team from Wildlife Institute of India briefed us on the conservation breeding measures being taken for the Great Indian Bustard and the challenges to its conservation. This was followed by a visit to the field where we were fortunate enough to spot the GIB from afar. Next, we stopped at the abandoned village of Kuldhara, pondering over the reasons for its abandonment. Our post-lunch study visit was to a plantation site in the desert where we saw the unique methods for carrying out plantation activities for sand dune stabilization, including mulching and use of native species. The day ended with jeep and camel safaris on the sand dunes and an exhilarating cultural performance by the talented artists under the stars. This day began with a visit to the tail end of the Indra Canal, the lifeline of the desert. We saw the immense greenery on both sides of the canal with plantations of eucalyptus, shisham and several other trees. We were informed that these areas had earlier been dry and sandy regions and that agriculture had been absent due to the lack of water. After a visit to another plantation site where we saw weeding and moisture retention works being carried out, we visited a nursery where it was evident that availability of a good water source could allow plantation of a variety of species in this dry region. The next day was a rest day after travel to Jodhpur. Here, we began our study tour with a visit to Arid Forest Research Institute, where we were introduced to the various activities being carried out in the institute, including the creation of manure from neem leaves. The nursery visit sensitized us on the various measures needed to create healthy seedlings. After lunch, we visited the Machia Biological Park, seeing the success of a park containing various species in this arid environment. Here, we also saw several measures for burrow-proofing the enclosures. Our penultimate day began with a ride to Jaipur, followed by interaction with PCCF and HOF, Rajasthan Forest Department, who engaged us in several discussions including the issue of animal relocation and challenges in Aravlis for Rajasthan. He implored us to be good foresters and enjoy the challenges of the service. The tour was behind us, and as we sped to the shadows of the Himalayas, we were left with memories and learnings that we will carry for the rest of our lives. The echoes of these experiences will mold our actions on the field in the service of the nation. Jai Hind.